Hello, and welcome to another edition of 3 Advisors in a Business. I'm Sidney Wayman here with Deidre Mercedes and BJ Handel. And before we get into our discussion today, I just want to take a minute to congratulate those 2026 New York Knicks for doing the do and beating up on them boys from San Antonio. I guess all I want to say is like it's most impressive when you're down 20 points or more in the third and or fourth quarter and you come back and win the game. So congratulations to the Knicks. Got to give a special shout out to BJ, who happens to be a serious Knick fan, who's been, you could see, he's been waiting quite a while.
Quite a while for
Quite a while.
I've
You can
always
tell by the
53 years. Hey, it's not that long. But that's okay. I like what Jalen Brunson said. He was asked why they start so slowly. And he said, well, they start the games at 8:30. We don't really start till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it was a great
That's
series.
party time. That's party time. So
That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a great series. I kind of thought that San Antonio showed their youth, as you said, BJ. They showed their youth.
Yeah.
You know, uh, they were actually embarrassed. New York embarrassed those boys.
a few
But
times.
yeah, I mean, almost every game. I mean,
Yeah.
San Antonio led like 90% of the time that they of the games, right? But they have a good squad. Victor is a tremendous talent. He needs to learn a little bit more about sportsmanship. But they have a nice young squad.
Lil Weeby. Okay.
Yeah, they have a nice squad, so they'll be back. But I really do think that Jalen Bronson proved a lot of these idiots, talking heads, wrong. The boy's bad. He's tough. The big squad was tough, but Jalen Bronson was able to marshal the talent on his team to really do some great things. So congratulations to the New York Knicks. I guess you guys will probably be at the parade tomorrow. I won't be. I stay away from those kinds of crowds. If the
more
Eagles
than
win-
200 people, I get nervous. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
the
don't think
Eagles win-
I'll watch it on television.
we're gonna celebrate from afar. But
Yeah.
I'm proud of them. Love it. I was 10 years old when it happened. I mean, evidently, but because I didn't see it. So
I remember I remember those as a matter of fact, I remember seeing the game, and I think this might have been they won in 70 and 73, I think.
That was it.
And I think in 70 was the year that Willis Reed got hurt,
Yes.
and then he walked back out on the floor. I remember watching that game. I was a teenager, I guess. But anyway, congratulations to the New York Knicks. Unfortunately, Apex Medical Components is the company we're going to talk about today. And BJ and I won't have a whole lot to say today because this company, based on what we've read, has a lot of ISO issues. And our resident ISO expert will help us kind of figure out some of the things this company needs to do. So BJ and I will probably be spending time asking Deidre Mercedes to kind of like clarify certain points on how this company get their act together. But it's a company, Apex Medical Components, as the name suggests. They, make medical devices, and they are OEM, original equipment manufacturer suppliers in the healthcare industry. The company is attempting to move into higher valued regulated contracts, but they're struggling with ISO certification failures, compliance gaps, inconsistent documentation, and lost contract opportunities. So these are all things that Deidre Mercedes can share her expertise in because that's her wheelhouse. Is that the word? Wheelhouse? bailiwick,
Bailiwick.
whatever you want to call it.
Whatever.
So we'll get into that discussion, but before we do, let's let's just do a brief overview of the company's situation. They have production costs of about 1.4 million, management team labor is about 475,000, administrative staff is about 100,000. So their total payroll is 1.4 mil. I'm sorry, is 1.9 mil, and the burden on that, which is, benefits, payroll taxes, etc., is about 400,000. So their total labor cost is 2.4 mil. They do about 5.4 mil in sales. Cost of goods sold is about 3.6, so their gross profit is about 1.8. Gross margins are 33%. Operating expenses come in at about 1.8 mil. Nothing really out of the ordinary with their operating costs. But they do have EBITDA of 720,000 a year, so the cash flow is fairly decent. Balance sheet looks fairly okay. 300,000 cash, 1.1 in receivables, 800,000 in inventory, 70,000 in prepaid. Machinery and equipment is 2.5 million, less a million in depreciation. Total assets are 3.8. Liabilities, payables are about 600,000. Line of credit has about a 500,000 outstanding, and equipment loans are about 900,000. So they have total liabilities of about 2 million. So they have 28 employees. Revenue per employee is about 193,000, which I don't know, that seems to be fairly decent. Sales per employee. Scrap rate is 4 to 5%. Sounds kind of high to me. Their audit pass rate, they've been failing their recent audits. And we're not talking about financial audits. We're talking about ISO audits that are necessary to compliance audits, the ability to manufacture within spec, that kind of thing. Their largest customer accounts for 30% of revenue, which is low compared to some of the other companies we talked about. Potential new contracts of over 2 million are in the pipeline, but they can't get it because they can't get certification because they're failing their audits. So the company is at a strategic inflection point. The company has failed 2 recent ISO quality audits, preventing it from securing higher margin medical contracts. Quality systems are incomplete. Despite having quality staff, the company lacked consistent documentation, traceability systems, standardized procedures. Increasing compliance costs are hurting them. They're spending more consultants in audits and documentation. So that's something else we need to talk with Deidre about. I think I might start the conversation there when I finish giving the summary. Operational inefficiencies. Production is still run like a general fabrication shop, not a regulated manufacturing environment. As a result, they have a lot of variability in work. There's a lot of rework and higher audit risk. The strategic opportunity versus the execution gap. The company has strong demand and access to high value markets, but cannot capitalize due to system deficiencies. Advisor issues framed for this episode would be ISO systems advisor, document control systems incomplete, training records inconsistent, corrective action process not instituted. So yeah, they have a lot of problems. And I guess I'd like you to start, since you're the resident ISO expert from Mercedes, they have these consultants, right? But they're not passing their audits. So what are the consultants doing?
Well,
let's start there, and then you could tell us how you might approach this. But as a consultant,
yeah.
why aren't these consultants doing their job? Or could they be doing their job and the company's just not following their advice.
All of the above could be true. And so I've seen both. Horrific horrifically. I've even been in a situation where I've walked away from a small company because they just weren't ready. And I didn't want to waste their time as a consultant, and I didn't want to waste their money. And you have to, as a consultant, you have to be able to make that call. I've walked away from a company that said, you know, we have an ISO expert, and our management representative at the time, they were management representatives, and the guy did not didn't know the standard. So I said, I'm leaving until this person gets training. Because if this is the person, you know, and I know they hired me as the consultant, but again, I'm the consultant. If I don't ensure that the right people get the right training and understand the right things, then I haven't done my job. Because at the end of the day, as a consultant, I'm not looking for a job. And that's another problem that some companies have, where they hire consultants and the consultant is actually looking for a job. And so they, you know, you might as well just badge them up. And that's not why you're there as a consultant. So that becomes a problem. And what I find in that situation is that the consultant may, at that point, become part of the problem, because they're trying to adapt to this company's system, as opposed to telling them how they need to change their culture and their systems in order to be effective. So there could be a lot of different problems. And I was actually very successful in that one where I walked away. Excuse me. The company was very successful where I walked away until the gentleman got training. Because he went and he got the training. I came back 3 months later, and we were able to have a conversation, and I was able to train the trainer to implement, and ISO certification was achieved. Because at the end of the day, I'm supposed to walk away, and that company is supposed to be able to stand on its own 2 feet.
What is
So
what is ISO? ISO. What is it?
International Standards of Organizations. It's an organization. If anybody wants to look it up, it ain't rocket science. It would be ISO.org. And so what it does is it puts a standard together that is internationally recognized, so that wherever you're doing business, if you're ISO certified or if you have an effective quality management system, any company that you're doing business with can trust you, because you're standardized. And there are thousands of standards, guidelines within the ISO family, because like this one is a medical device company, so they are 13485. That's the standard, ISO 13485, which is medical device, not medical. And there are medical standards as well, but medical device. The 9000 standard is the quality standard, which every standard which was built on. The 45, which used to be the 18,000. I hope I didn't get that one wrong. Operational health and safety, I believe it is. The 14,000 environmental. I could go on and on, but the list gets really boring after a while. The point is that all of them are based on the 9000 standard, which is the 9001 standard. So what this company, well, I was answering the first question. Your question was, first of all, did I answer your question? There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Now, let's go to the second part, because if I was talking about ineffectiveness of a consultant, or some of the reasons why a consultant can be ineffective. And my colleagues and I have run into a lot of different problems. Like, for instance, consultants, that see how much money that they can make, and they go out there and they read a book and they take a class in October, and they think they can implement ISO in January. And that really that really works. Then there was, I'm sure the systems are becoming better and better, particularly with AI, but even within the last 10 years. But there was an issue that, again, myself and some of my colleagues who agreed with me, that when they got these systems, these electronic systems that, oh, we can implement in 6 weeks, and just put all your little documentation in there, and names and stuff, and the system is going to implement it. Well, that's the problem, because everybody in an organization is responsible for quality, not just one person, not just the CEOs and the leadership team. Everybody in the company is responsible for quality. And there's this person who is, you back in the day, it was the management rep who was ultimately responsible for quality. I mean, that's what it said, that there was somebody who had to be the lead. But now it's, the changes have been, they had to come back and kind of revise that, and make sure that everybody is responsible for quality. So when you have a situation where, like you guys are sitting there going, yeah, this one is Deirdre's because, it's mostly quality. Yes, it is, but it still has to deal with operations and finance in every part of the organization, because that's what quality management systems are. They don't govern, and that's another myth, that people say, oh, we don't want ISO telling us how to do business. The ISO standard never told a company how to do their business. The ISO standard says, if you want to have a higher level quality management system, implementing the requirements of ISO will help you get there over time. And that's because of continuous improvement.
Okay. So this company failed a bunch of audits, right? So what kind of audit did they fail? I mean, what
So,
can you kind
so
of
the
like
standard, the standard says that where the standard says you must do this, you must do that.
well, can
So
you
if the
give us an
standard said,
example like
yeah,
of
if the
what
standard, go ahead.
no, can you give us an example? Like you said, 87647963 is the standard for medical devices.
I
All
said
right, so
13485.
what does 8767367 say about medical devices? You know what I mean? What can you give us like a concrete example of what it might say, right? About
So the standard, if the standard says, and I'm not going to do an ISO class right here, but I'm just going to, like you said, I'm gonna give you an example. If the standard says that you have to make sure that you effectively monitor your systems, then you have to put in a system that meets your environmental and cultural needs of that organization, and put in a system that makes sure that everything is monitored per FDA requirements. You see, the requirements are internal. So you have your statutory, your regulatory, and your internal requirements. Where does the requirement come from? And here I go doing a daggone class. Requirements come from everywhere. So even if the fire department says that you have to have certain systems in place, like for instance, you have to, I don't know what city is not supposed to have a fire drill, particularly one that has some environmental um, uh, um, vulnerabilities. So if the fire department says that you have to have a fire drill every year, then you have to actually prove, you have to have one, and then prove that you have one, and that's through records. And so if we go back to this company, let's go back to this organization. This audit, they took the standard, the 13485 standard, and the 13485 standard, and it talked about the 9001 standard as well, I'm sure, I believe. And there's a bunch of requirements. You must do this, you must do this, you must do that. It doesn't tell you how to do it, but here's the thing. Here's the biggest thing. What ISO says is do what you say and say what you do. So if you have a process that says before you turn on the oven, you have to ring the bell 3 times and spin around in your head and then ring the bell, that's what you have to do. It may be ridiculous, but that's what you said you were doing. And so that's what you have to do. So the auditor is coming out reading your documentation and saying, what did you say you were going to do? You said you were going to do A, B, C, and somewhere in here said you were going to spin around 3 times. I haven't seen anybody in here spinning around 3 times on their head. That guy spun around, but he spun around on his feet. You failed that requirement. Say
Do I
what you
have to
do.
pay for this?
Yes.
If I'm,
Yes.
so I got to pay for this.
Yes.
Wow.
What's
Yes.
very interesting to me is they have a quality manager in
Go
part
ahead.
of the managerial staff. There's a quality manager and they fail quality tests.
Does the quality manager, first of all, is it a quality control manager? The quality
I don't
control,
know,
the
it just
quality,
says they
I
have a
know, exactly.
quality
But the
manager.
quality control manager may be doing his or her job. But is the quality assurance manager making sure that the quality control manager is doing what he or she needs to do in order to monitor and measure failure and successes throughout the system? Hmm. So you have a situation where, yeah, this problem, it says they have inconsistent documentation, which means that their documentation system is all screwed up. They don't have, like, they have documentation, but they don't have an effective system
Right.
where revision. So if a process changes, they don't. They probably have situation where they don't delineate the information correctly. Clearly, they said it says that in the profile that the training systems are not right. So they may not even be training people correctly on the documentation system. So they may hire somebody on Tuesday, and if they're not training somebody on the documentation system, which everybody in the company should be trained on the documentation system on some periodic basis, if these things are not happening, that means that knowledge is not being retained or even learned through their ineffective training system. And if it is, they need to have records that say this person was trained at the appropriate time, that person was trained at the appropriate time, that person was trained and retrained. And then and then check this out. You then have to figure out how to measure how they have retained that training. There's just so much. We're not going to do this in 30 minutes. What else do you
Well,
want to add?
I mean, I'm hoping not. As a matter of fact,
Traceability. Yeah, and it looks like they said the traceability and training is like there are two things. Inconsistent product and process traceability. So operations is crazy because they're not if you don't have good traceability within your product, that means that your supply chain and it's a supply chain company, medical device company, that means that you've lost control within your operation. So you don't know what you're sending out, you don't know what you're getting in, and you certainly don't know the quality of the product that you're getting in if you don't have good traceability, which means that you may have lost sight of first in, first out controls. You may have lost sight of shelf life. You may have lost sight of product identification and where things are in the system because now you have process traceability. So there's all these things, and we talked about this, I think, a lot. I think I said it a lot last time when I was talking about management review. So now you have if it's gone that crazy and if you've actually gone into an audit, an ISO audit, and failed it, it's one thing, here's the thing. In order to fail an ISO audit, you can get non-conformances and you can get findings all day long. But if you fail the audit, that means that you've had the same non-conformance and findings over and over again. An auditor doesn't come in and go, "Oh, you have 23 findings,"
Yeah.
which are they're against the system, and then fail you. That's not what happens. Then they come in the next time because you have a certain amount of time to fix those findings, and then they come in the next time and they find them again. Now your finding has turned into is probably a minor, has turned into a major. Now, if they come in again and those same majors are failed again, now you have failed the audit. And by that time, you've already went through your 3 years, which means that the company that is auditing you does not, they're saying, we're going to pull your certification. We're not coming in here anymore. You know, they could just pull the certificate. They don't want, basically they don't want to do business with you because you can't keep up your system. It's no sense to keep coming in and you failed. What are you going to do to fix it?
Yeah.
And if you've gotten that far into the system, into the certification, and you failed that many times and had that many findings and that many majors that you're at a fail, that has taken some time. And that means that there is a serious issue with management. Your consultants aren't worth a poop. And
Aside from that, they're in great shape.
yeah, aside from that, you're in great shape. Now, I've actually had, you know, a situation where I was invited, secured, whatever you want to call it, to an organization that shall remain nameless at this time. They had an audit. I don't remember how long, but it was like a very short period of time. Very short period of time. And I accepted the mission. I went in and I looked at it and I basically said, I don't know why you even have a certification, and I don't know why you've kept it for so many years. But you're getting new auditors in because you also know when they're going to change your auditors. They're not supposed to have the same auditors all the time, because it creates a little teeny weeny conflict. You're getting a new group of auditors. You're not going to pass. I'm not going to say you don't have a system because everybody has a system, but it is extremely damaged. And the time that I had before the audit, we couldn't fix it. I'm not going to be that type of auditor that says, "Oh, I can work miracles. Just give me all your money." No. I said, "Give me your money, and we're going to throw ourselves this whole system on the mercy of the audit, on the mercy of the auditor." And when those auditors came in, we had quickly done a sweep and audited, and we identified all the failures. We wrote them down. We did everything. We made corrective actions. We said, this is screwed. It's screwed. So when the auditors came in, we had the audit report that we did, and that's what I said. I said, they're screwed. So, but because we named everything, because we found it all, they still audited, and they found everything that we found.
Right.
They didn't find more?
They did not. What they did do was they took 11 of them. I remember that number. And they made them actual findings because they were so serious.
So what happened?
They came back they maintained their certifications. They came back the next year and everything was fixed, and we just kept rolling along. And then I left. And they are still rolling along absolutely beautifully. They're doing the daggone thing.
Well, what I don't understand is, so I get it. So when I had a coffee company, we were doing business with a large coffee company, right? We were toll roasting. We were roasting for them under their label. And
Okay.
so they had we had to maintain our plant within their guidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Sorry,
they came
fly
in
in here somewhere. Go ahead.
Yeah, they came in and they did, the review of like how we did things and all that kind of stuff, right? What I don't understand in this is, who is ISO? Like, who's coming out to audit me? Is there an organization of ISO auditors that comes out and audits these companies, or is it let's say I'm a device manufacturer, medical device manufacturer, and I want to do business with, let's say, Johnson and Johnson or some hospital, right? Does the hospital have ISO auditors that they send to my business to do the audit according to the ISO standards?
So the best
Who
way,
where do the auditors come from? Is it like a CPA firm, that ISO firm? Is it the big four ISO
yeah,
companies, like the big four accounting firms, or what? Where do the auditors
yeah,
come from?
pretty much. So let me tell you. There's organizations out there, and they are accredited by the government, by the governing body. And there's a governing body. I don't know the number of how many governing bodies there are off the top of my head today, but there are governing bodies in every country, every region of the globe. And those governing bodies, if accredit the auditing organization, and then the auditing organization goes out and gets auditors that are certified auditors, and those people are the ones that go out from these organizations, and they are the ones who are doing the audit. So, for instance, off the top of my head, like United Laboratories.
I heard.
They have, yeah. So, why wouldn't they? They've been doing this for how long? Many years, 100 and some odd, 200 years, something like that. And of course they would have an ISO auditing division, but UL is accredited by the governing body in the country in which they are headquartered. NSAI, National Standards Authority of Ireland, is an organization that will come out and audit. They have their auditors, and they are accredited by, the region, the organization, the national organization for that Ireland sits in. You can go on and on and on. There's every country has them. The last time I looked at it, it's been a minute. There were 127 of them that were out there accrediting organizations. And when I got started in ISO, there were just a handful of quite a few, but it was a handful, but still a kind of a lot of accredited organizations that would go out, and it depended, and it is still one of those things where who does your audit is kind of prestigious. So, you have ABC, who somebody, like, if the three of us went out there and said, "Oh, we're gonna go get accredited," we may get accredited, but nobody's gonna take our certification seriously because nobody heard of us. But UL is taken very seriously.
But then doesn't that see that's the problem I find with all this crap. I'm sorry, not crap. I don't mean it. But
Yeah,
it's
but that,
look, if I go and get certified as an auditor, right, then why wouldn't someone use me? Right? I'm certified, right? If my certification doesn't prove to people that I am capable
you
of
mean your
doing
accreditation?
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
It's a big difference. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, accreditation. I'm an accredited auditor. If you're not going to take my accreditation seriously, then why should I take the ISO standards and audit seriously? You know what I mean? It's what
So let me tell you why. And here I go with this. It's a quick one, and it's interesting because this happened with a medical device company. The owner of the company calls me in. He interviews me, and he decides to go with the other guy. Okay, great, nice meeting you. Take care. Small company of about, I think there were not 20 people in the company. It was a very, very small company. I'm not even going to tell you what they did, but it was a medical device. About a year later, This gentleman, same gentleman who interviewed me and went with the other guy, calls me and he says, "Can you please come in?" I said, "Sure." I went and I met with him, and I already knew what was going to happen, but it's okay. He tells me that the other guy who's this auditing, this consulting company hired or they talked them into doing business with this auditing company that was accredited, and they passed the audit. He was so proud. Ooh, that's a big one. He got his pilot's license. He was so proud that the company passed the audit that he called the FDA in and said, "Hey, we got our ISO certification. Come on in, FDA, whenever you want," because the FDA shows up whenever they want. So when the FDA shows up, what they found was that he had no system. So the consultant that they hired happened to have some kind of relationship with this person who got accredited to be a certified body. These two were in cahoots, and so they both, it was a scam. They both led this guy to believe that he had a system, gave them all my money.
And then the FDA came in and said, you don't have a system.
You don't have a system. He couldn't
We're
find a
not gonna let
document.
you do this anymore.
He
But
couldn't find what? No, you asked me a question. I'm trying to tell you. This is
I
why
know, I
you
know, I
need to
know, I
have a
know.
reputable, accredited company, because there are
But
companies out there, once they figured out how much money they could make,
Yeah.
they were out there scamming people.
but I guess my thing would be, so how don't you know you how do you not know you don't have a system? I mean,
If you don't know
don't
what a
don't
system, if you don't know what a system is in the first place, and you don't understand ISO, and you haven't done your homework, and remember this happened shortly after the internet boom. So people couldn't go online and just look it up.
Yeah.
but
Now,
I mean it's
They
not
could look
even
it
that
up,
though.
but excuse me?
It's not even it's not even that though. I mean, so I understand that some people and business people and they get so caught up with stuff. It's like, signing something before reading it, right? It's like if I have an ISO problem and I have to go get somebody to come in and do whatever, I'm going to learn a little bit about what
That would
this
be you.
is so I know I'm paying for something. What am I paying for?
That
Right?
would
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not paying for somebody to just come in and blow,
right.
just,
Sydney, what I'm trying to
Whatever's
say to
happening,
go ahead,
whatever,
BJ.
say whatever's happening, and to go back to this specific case, Apex wants to sell higher end, better products, and they can't. And they
right,
can't because they're not getting it passed. And clearly, well, one of two things are happening. Either they're kind of self-doing this and saying we're not going to send products that we can't actually get passed to somebody, or they're just the clients are basically saying, do you have you passed this? Can you do it? And they're
right.
saying no. I don't know which
What
we
there's
should
what's
find it. So
you
bottom
can
line is it's not getting done.
It's not getting done. And if you claim to be ISO certified, it's just like any other certification. It's you can look it up and find the status of
Yeah.
your certification. So if you're failing and you can't and you don't get if you get a conditional
Yeah.
um we're gonna pass you conditionally, then your prospective clients are waiting for those conditions to be met. So not think back, but some people still do it, those who aren't certified. If your coffee company, if you want to do business with a bigger coffee company, or whatever, or sell to Hilton or whatever, back in the day, Hilton would just send out their supply chain manager and audit your business, right? And so
Right.
they would pay for a hotel for wherever your headquarters are, whatever they're auditing, they would pay for you know, a few days of them being out there, air flight and all that, and it would cost a great deal of money. And so everybody said, hey, no, let's if you get this certification, we don't have to send our people out. You pay to get certified. And once you get that certification, then we don't have to spend that money to send. Like, why should we have to spend money? So you spend money to prove that you are meeting this internationally recognized standard with all these wonderful requirements that makes, and then we know that because you have ISO banner across the top of your web page and across the top of your building, we know that we don't have to spend that money because we know that you are maintaining ISO certification. So we don't have to spend that money anymore. So either way, you're going to get audited. These bigger companies they either want to see the ISO certification or they're going to send their supply chain managers out to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing. Either way, you're not gonna get the business.
Isn't that also their legal protection? I mean, if I'm buying something from someone and they say that can say that they are ISO passed on this standard, I can buy it. I mean, I'm legally doing the correct thing. If I don't do that, I might be able to have somebody come back if there's a problem. They can come back legally against me.
No, the only reason no, I'm sorry. Either I don't understand the question or I'm just gonna tell you this.
Go ahead.
I think first of all, ISO certification is voluntary. No company has to get ISO certified. The only reason a company has to get the reasons a company get ISO certified is because they want to attract bigger companies and get bigger contracts like this company.
Right.
Or they, you know, it's for marketing purposes, or they actually want a system. They actually want to do better. So it's not just a stamp for them. It's a new way to do business, and that's what they're doing, and they're dedicated to it. And they're going to make sure that because they actually see the value of having of making sure that everybody is responsible for quality and their systems are in place and everybody's doing what they need to be doing on a regular basis. So what you just said is this legal thing. Listen, I don't care if you're ISO certified or you're not. If you sell a defective part or
Agreed.
or lettuce or whatever, I don't care what certifications you have or don't have, you're liable for whatever damages you do. What ISO does for you is it helps you say, like for instance, if you have great traceability and identification, which is one of this company's problems.
Then you can show what you did then. Yeah.
Well, not just that. One of the biggest parts of identification and traceability is, let's just say something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Now you have a process, which I'm not going to go through right now, to have an effective recall.
Right.
One of the biggest things that ISO auditors do, especially when you're manufacturing parts or basically anything, is one of the specific parts of audits, particularly like in safety and food safety, perhaps. I can say this which is the 2022, is the 22,000, is you have to be able to pass a recall. So they'll find the part number and they'll say, let's pretend that this lot or something was contaminated.
Yeah.
Show me how you're going to show me all the records that you're going to use to pull back and get back all this inventory. And that auditor will go through every last lot, part number, everything. It's a major part of an audit. So it's showing that you not only have great product, but if something happens,
right,
you can now protect the public and you can call all that back effectively and be able to say, we got it all. Everybody out there is safe. It's a major thing. So when you're talking about legally, if you go out there and you do something like, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can come back, and I say it all the time, but when BP blew up the
Yeah.
oil rig, and they said, did you have a quality management system? Did you have a quality manual? And to my recollection, the guy said, we always meant to have one. And they said, why didn't you? And he said, we didn't think anything was going to happen. Okay. That's, there you have it. We didn't think anything was going to happen.
But did the explosion on the rig result from
Nothing was going to happen.
Not having whatever they didn't have? I mean,
Yes.
how? I mean, what caused the explosion?
I'm sorry, that was a lot of years ago, and I know that there was a
No,
reason.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, sometimes stuff just happens, right?
No, what stuff just happens, Sydney? There's always an investigation. There's always a
There might be an
probe.
investigation. I guess what I'm saying is, like, it would seem to me that what did they ask the guy if he had a what?
Quality manual.
Yeah.
A quality
Which
manual.
means that basically they did not put together a quality management system so that they could maybe foresee something was wrong with that gauge, something was wrong with this instrument, something happened there. They were not able to identify whatever the markers were that were going up and up and up and saying, hey, danger, 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 danger. They didn't have a quality management system in place to see that, and the damn thing blew up.
Mm.
Now I can't sit here and tell you what today. I don't remember.
No, I was just
But
thinking.
there's always an investigation. When you kill people, there's always an investigation.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is you could have
I
this.
agree with that 100%.
You could have this like manual thing, right? And I don't know. I guess when you're doing this, you're saying, okay, if something goes wrong with the pressure gauge, right? It's not going to explode for an hour, so I have to have someone look at it every hour.
That's right. You
There
are
are supposed to be something in place. So you have an idea that something is going incorrectly, and you should be taking corrective action as opposed to going, "Oh, damn, it just blew up."
Exactly.
Well,
so
I guess
let me help you out. Let me help you out. Yes, if you have a system in place where you say, hey, we're gonna check this pressure gauge, whether you're making beverages or drilling gas,
whatever it is, yeah.
oil, whatever it is, there's a gauge, and then you have these, and let's just say somewhere along the line, because things don't happen, and you go, hey, we're going to check this gauge. We got to check this gauge. It's important. We're going to check this gauge every 6 months. And then somebody goes and they check the gauge every 6 months. And for 6 years, nothing happens. But then one time they go in there and they go, boop, that gauge it went past some tolerance or whatever. And they go, okay, that maybe that was a one-off, but we still have to investigate. First of all, you have to have a system in place that says we have to investigate why that happened. Now, if it happens again, then now it's possible, because you didn't fix it. That means your corrective action system didn't work. So now you need to say, wait a minute, we need to check this gauge every 3 months. And it goes boop. And now you're saying, you know what? This is dangerous. This is a critical process. And that's another thing too. What's the difference? Where's your critical processes? And now you may have to just say, hey, what is the risk? How many people can we kill if this, or what can we do? How many fish can we kill? Whatever. You may have to check it every hour until you fix the problem.
But what I don't understand.
That's how come they don't want to see me coming.
But what I don't understand is there is a standard, right? That this gauge should be checked every 6 months. Right?
Who set the standard?
Somebody has to set the standard.
Okay, you tell me who set the standard. ISO
I have
doesn't.
no idea. I guess it's one of those ISO
No, I just told you before.
pain in the ass people.
ISO does not tell you how to do your business. ISO tells
No, look,
okay,
this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. You're saying ISO tells you you're supposed to check this stuff, but somebody, maybe the manufacturer of the gauge, will
that's
give
right.
you, this gauge is good for whatever, right?
Mhm.
So I set my thing up, right? And I'm checking it every 6 months, which is what the manufacturer suggests, right?
Mhm.
The manufacturer has a bad production run,
Okay.
and they create some gauges that instead of lasting for, instead of having to be checked every 6 months, they do a production run, and hey, these gauges you might want to check every 3 months, but they don't know that they have a problem, right? They don't know that they have a problem
You just said that
until
they know they have a problem.
no, they
Okay.
does a company always know when there's a bad production run before the fact? No.
It
That's why stuff gets out in the public, and you have to have the ability to recall because that production batch passes through the quality control tests.
and
But
if they
they
have a good quality
have
management,
traceability. That's why you have the whole part about traceability that
Right.
was talking
wait,
about.
wait.
Because if you do
'Cause-
that, you got to go back and say, where was that production? What
Right.
was it?
Because your
When
gauge screwed up. So that must
they don't do
mean
that.
whoever else bought a gauge from that batch their stuff could be screwed up too. So we have to identify those people. But the point I'm trying to make is for me, who bought the gauge from this supplier, right? I'm checking every 6 months,
Okay.
right? So what I hear you're saying is that as long as I could document that I've been checking every 6 months, which is what the manufacturer said I should do, then it doesn't matter that in 3 months my gauge blows and you know I
No,
start
I don't think I'm saying that. I think what I'm saying is this, that you have this supply chain where in order to do business with one company, you may need to have some kind of certification. The company who made the gauges,
Yeah.
okay, let's assume that they're selling these gauges every day and they're putting out the same information 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. At some point within the next 6 months, if they're failing, somebody's going. As a matter of fact, depending on the lot, a few people are going to report something's wrong, which now they need to go back in their system if they have a good quality management system and say, yeah, something's wrong with this, and now we have to do a recall. Now, if that doesn't happen for some reason, like cars, you don't find out that the brake line is defective until somebody loses control of the car, and now but then it triggers a recall. So you're absolutely right that you may not find out but once it triggers, that's the first domino that falls. Now, I can tell you for sure that I have been to companies which again will remain nameless. They know daggone well that they are putting out a defect.
Yeah.
But it's more expensive to stop production and fix that than it is to just put it out there and put a system in place for the people who find the defect to pull
unless
them
of
back.
course the defect causes somebody to die.
Well, then those are that's how come one of the biggest things that was changed for the 2015 standard of 9001 and all the rest of them was risk and risk-based thinking. Because not only now do you have to look at the risk of every one of those decisions that you make. So if you look at something, if the engineer comes running down the hall and goes to the operations manager and says, "Hey, this one failed and 16 of them out of 2000 failed," somebody in accounting and sales and everybody else is going to sit down and they're going to come together and they're going to say, do we burn these or do we go ahead and send them out? And when somebody complains about this eraser, and is it going to, is this eraser going, failing, gonna hurt anybody? And now, if the failure is that this part of the pencil is, once you go and put it and sharpen it, it splinters, and now you have a situation where a child might get a splinter in their finger, and that splinter could infect them. That's a whole different conversation than this eraser coming off. That's a whole different conversation on risk-based thinking.
Risk is in the of the beholder. I mean, risk is subjective.
Not when you're talking to a good engineer.
No, risk is
That's the
failing.
science. No, because now you're dealing with science.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Don't give me that. Oh, okay. That like, dismissive.
What
You don't know
about
what you're talking
Ebola?
about.
What
Okay.
about, what's that stuff that they always find in the lettuce? What is that stuff?
Salmonella.
Yeah, what about, that's the science. You got salmonella in one batch, you gotta do the whole lot. That's the
No,
science.
we're not talking about salmonella. We're talking about looking at your pencil thing, the risk of the eraser thing, right?
Okay.
If risk was totally objective, why would companies be getting sued over stuff?
Because they didn't do and prove that they did. See, it's one thing to say we did the risk analysis. It's another thing to prove that you did the risk analysis. And then now somebody is going to have to look at it and find out how effective your risk analysis was.
So if you prove that you did the risk analysis, you can't get sued.
No, I didn't say that.
Simply say, look, because you did this, I had this harm and it's your fault. Now, that's where the lawsuit is. It doesn't mean it's true. It just means that's what happens.
Okay, but here's the thing too. When you're dealing with your risk analysis and even documentation, there's one thing to say, I did this and I can prove it. And it's another thing to say, oh my God, we didn't even think about that. So if somebody got hurt, depending on which one that is, your contributory factors, meaning how much you have to pay, is going to be lesser or greater in a court of law. Just saying. But I think we're all off the subject here.
Well, of course, we're subject.
Way away from Apex.
That's what we do, is get off the subject.
But so that's what I'm saying. If I'm a company and I didn't do a risk analysis, I don't have a quality management system, I'm just out here making stuff. I'm just out here cooking food. I didn't even think about the cockroach going across and how much, damage that cockroach could do in my spaghetti and meatballs or my potato salad. But if I did the risk analysis, I had the exterminator coming in, I made sure the pots were clean, I had training records for everybody about food safety and all of that, and someone still got sick, those contributory factors are gonna.
I don't care how much you document, whatever. If I come into your restaurant and buy some potato salad and find a roach in it or a cockroach in it, I'm suing.
Oh, I didn't say you weren't going to sue, and I didn't say you weren't.
I didn't say you would. I didn't say it. I'm saying
all I said was that there's a penalty factor that may be lesser if you can prove that you did your due diligence to be a good citizen of the environment.
The restaurant thing is a kind of interesting thing though, because in order to open a restaurant, an owner has to have, or a partner, a manager has to have the food handling license. And you're surprise checked, inspected every year, 6 months, whatever it is, right? So I guess that is their ISO audit.
Yeah, exactly.
but
just like construction sites, their ISO is OSHA.
Yeah, you just give them a
15, 20,000
envelope, But no, I mean straight up, yeah. I mean, so I guess what and maybe this would be, maybe we should ask you to maybe tailor a discussion where we could be more specific, because I guess it really depends on the type of business, right? I can't imagine, I guess every business probably has certain standards, operating standards that they
That's
might
right.
want to follow. But they're so different, right? I mean, if I have a retail outlet selling clothes, right, my standards for operation are based on, okay, I want a customer greeted as soon as they come in the door. I want my employees to always have a smile on their face. I want my merchandise. I
To
want
look a
my
certain way.
yeah, everything, right. So that's one set of standards. And I guess, you know, do I create a book, a manual to do that? I
Yes,
guess.
Yes, because there's a lot of standards that are government. I mean, basically, like, I have been in this business, and you have to have country of origin. You have to have what type of material something is made of. All of this has to be labeled and marked. You can't just say, well, I'm going to put this out there. I mean, buyers don't do that. That's not how it works. They know what they have to have. You
that's
have
right.
to have flammability requirements. There's a
That's
whole
right.
bunch of requirements in all of this that are put together and are legally there. So you have to do this.
So let's add on to that and also answer one of the questions that you just had. Have you all ever, either one of you, both of you, walked into a store, um, and you walk in and the people who work there are moving around and they're just, they got carts and they standing around tapping their foot, waiting for you to get out the way. They don't say anything, or they be like, excuse me, whatever.
To the
Or
workers or
nobody,
other customers?
huh?
The workers in the store
The
or other
workers,
customers?
they're not
Oh.
saying anything to you. They're just in there. You feel like you're not welcome and all that. And then one day you walk in, 6 months, you've been going to this store just because it's quiet. You don't feel welcome and nothing. And then one day you walk in. This has happened to me at Home Depot. This has happened to me at some grocery stores, Albertsons. And one day you walk in and every single employee that you pass by or make eye contact with says, hello, how are you? Can I help you with anything?
Well,
Somebody wrote a requirement.
Mercedes, you
Somebody
know,
wrote a requirement and said you will
Mercedes,
lose your, wait a minute, you will lose
you,
your job
you
if
know,
you don't
Mercedes.
greet our customers and make them feel welcome.
And
It
the
was
reason they wrote that requirement is because enough customers like me went in there one time and had
Yeah.
that bad experience and said, you know what, I'm not going back. And I probably go on Facebook or whatever and say something, right? So, but I mean, I hear
exactly,
your
but
point.
but
I hear your point, right?
but it is
You know,
now, wait a minute, it is not a regulatory requirement. It is not a statutory requirement. It is now, to what BJ's point was, an internal requirement.
Yeah.
You better say hello to every customer and ask them if they need help. I don't care what they're doing. If you make eye contact with them, say something.
There's a bunch of
But
them.
it is a requirement.
But they don't.
that's why when I went to Home Depot the other day, all the employees were looking down at the floor
Okay, right?
because they didn't want to make eye contact because they didn't want to say hello. How can I help you?
But all I'm
I was at
saying
Whole Foods
is,
Hey,
yesterday, and there were two employees standing right in the middle where I needed to get. They could have cared less. It's like, yeah, I don't need you as a client because I don't get paid that much. I mean,
and
that was just kind of part of it. It's unfortunate, but that's what it was.
but all I'm saying is, I've walked into stores after years of going there, and I've seen the change.
Yeah.
And
right.
that's because somebody up high said, this is going to happen or you're going to lose your job.
Well, I remember at Walmart, that was something. There were store greeters. I mean, there were
Yeah.
people who got paid to stand at the front of the door and
Well, they
greet.
weren't paid much.
Yeah,
They were paid, but they
Doesn't
weren't
matter.
paid much. You said Walmart, right?
they still
I
got
remember the
paid.
agreements.
But they still got paid for sitting there and saying hi. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Thing.
right.
Yeah,
We can joke about it all day long. All I'm saying is,
it
No,
happens.
no.
That's okay.
there are internal requirements that don't have much to do with the product. It has to do with customer satisfaction, which again is a big thing with ISO, customer perception, however you want to call it, and making sure, because your customer, but listen, without your customer, what are you in business for, right? So all I'm saying is that it's not always about what's being produced and how it's being produced or cooked or whatever. It's sometimes those changes and those requirements are about keep retaining customers. There's also internal requirements in companies about retaining employees. There's because you don't want to lose that knowledge. There's so many requirements that say we don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
ISO just says if you want to get this certification and if you want to have a better level of quality, a higher level of quality, you will adopt these. And listen, there's I don't actually push ISO certification. I push quality management systems and management system effectiveness and continuous improvement, which is all part of ISO. But it's all about having an effective quality management system that where you can retain good employees and retain good knowledge and have good operations and continuous improvement and people who have initiative and they're thinking and have risk-based thinking to make sure that you and effective management review and controls and effectiveness and efficiency.
Yeah. Speaking of effective control,
Yes.
I think we need to take control over the clock and recognize that we spent quite a bit of time discussing ISO.
That's because you said it was my problem this time.
Well,
That's
it
right.
was. It
Now you
was.
know,
'Cause frankly,
that's part of
frankly,
ISO. You're gonna have a whole
Oh,
nother.
I'm sorry. My opportunity. Sorry.
yeah, your opportunity. I mean, so I'm sure there's a place for this, and I think small business people generally, but particularly small business people should recognize the importance of having standards, right? There's a way to do business. Most people starting a business have an idea or a concept how they want to do business. And I think it helps to write that down even before you start. It's like, one of the things I opened a sandwich shop a few years ago and I'm from Philly. So
You're
I'm
at
used to
cheesesteak.
sandwich shops, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a cheesesteak shop, hoagie shop, right? Um, I'm used to sandwich shops, right? And sandwich shops were almost like bars in Philly. There was one on every corner. And back in the day, years and years and years ago, like there was a sandwich shop almost on every corner, and each gave you a different experience,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that they actually set out to create that experience necessarily. It's just it was organic. But when I opened my sandwich shop, I said I want to capture some of these things, right? And so I said, okay, this is how I want my employees to greet customers. This is how I want them to make sandwiches, right? Like I was telling people, the cheese goes on top of the steak on the grill, then the roll goes on top of the meat. And oh yeah, but then people say they can't see the cheese. I don't care. That's this is our standards. This is how we do it. They can, if they want to watch us make the sandwich, they can see us put the cheese on top. And, it's like you're making a sandwich. The meat goes on the bread, and then the lettuce and tomato goes on top of the meat. Why? Because you don't want the lettuce and tomatoes to make the bread soggy. It's just these standards, right? The point I'm trying to make is that every business has certain standards that they need to meet, right? And so I guess the point you're making, Mercedes, is that it begins with writing that manual. That manual will say how things are done. And I think connecting this to some of the other companies we talked about, I think in every case we made the point that nothing was written down. There's no manual. People don't know what to do because the experienced people never wrote anything down. So new employees had to trial and error on their own. So every time there was a change in personnel, there was a new period of trial and error, which created the rework.
And can I
So
can I just say this? I also had an experience where I work with a company that that was ISO certified for like 12 years. And it was so bizarre when I walked in there, more than half the employees didn't know what ISO was. And
well,
I'm not gonna get into the intricacies of how that happened right now because we're trying to get
but,
out of here. But
see, my thing would be, I don't think you have to know what ISO is to know that you want to do things a certain way. And in order to get things done a certain way, you might need to create standards and a manual,
and that's
right?
the point. They didn't know that there were standards in a manual. That is the point.
But you said they didn't know what ISO was.
But
There's a difference. A standard and a
okay.
manual is not necessarily ISO.
I should have said they did not know that they had standardized operations.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
what I should have said.
Okay. Okay.
My
I understand
bad.
that.
My bad.
'Cause, I mean, I didn't know what ISO was until I met
Can you be the
you.
happy medium here? What you got to say, sir?
What I have to say is simply, look,
Let's go next.
I made shoes in Taiwan, in China, in Korea. Some people had standards for this. Not everybody had standards for it. You had to have your own standards, but while retailers had certain standards, everybody had different standards, but everybody had something.
Right.
I mean, how do you gain? You had to do all of this in a way that was standardized, because if you didn't, it would have just been a total nightmare.
Exactly. And what I was saying is that ISO doesn't tell you how you do it. It just says that, so it doesn't say how you do your documentation system. It just says that you must have one and it must be effective. And it must be effective given the state of your environment and your culture. That's all it
And I
says.
completely agree. I agree. And on that
That's all
note,
it says.
I got
So Sydney said like one, but we could move forward through with this. But this particular company that we're working with here, they don't have consistent much
yeah.
of anything,
They
and
don't.
that's why, and that's why
They
they're
can't.
losing so much
They have
or not
people who
making much
want
more
to
money.
buy. They want to. They have people who want to buy higher priced, higher margin products. They want to buy it from them, and they can't get the approval to do it. Consequently, that company needs to sit down and have an effective, why is this, and how are we going to change it, and then get it changed? Because they're failing at pretty much every system you can think of. So if the owner of the company said, I want to do this and move to this level, and the rest of the company can't get there, something's missing. And it's like, okay, put it together. This is not rocket science. This is legitimate business. It's hard, but it's got to happen.
And if you
And
don't
that's
have
my 18 cents on it. That's what I think.
And no, and you're right. And my, 15 cents on it is that, if you want to play with the big boys, you got to get out of the sandbox.
Yeah.
So you got to stop playing with this whole thing if that's what you want to do. And if you want to keep the status quo and you don't want to grow and you don't want to develop and you don't care if you piss your customers off or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you don't care about, then that's great.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Agreed. If you're happy with where things are, just leave it the way it is, but you're not. So if you're
Right.
saying you're not happy with it, then you have to make the changes necessary to do it.
And some of those changes are very hard. They
That's
they
right.
include they
Got it.
include layoffs. They include organizational changes. They include blowing everything up and putting it back together again. They
But
include spending an awful lot of money on
what's the
and
trade-off?
it's a lot of different things.
You got to do this to accomplish it. It's not hard to. It's just a simple fact of life.
It's a simple fact of life. You're absolutely right.
And
I
on that,
find
the
I
throw-
find that most facts of life are not simple.
Of course they're not. That's why everybody's around to try and figure out how to get it done.
You're right.
Ain't nothing simple, trust me, but that's life.
That's
One thing that's
right.
really not simple is this ISO stuff.
It's
But anyway,
not simple.
I'd like to thank Deidre Mercedes. I keep calling her Deidre. She prefers Mercedes. But she'll answer, she'll respond to either. But she prefers Mercedes. I want to thank Mercedes for kind of like, taking the lead on this ISO stuff. I think that you did a, good job kind of setting the tone for what ISO is and how it's used. And so I'm hoping that listeners got an insight into it. To me, the main lesson is you should have standards for how you do everything in your business. And those standards should not just be in your head, but they should be documented in a manual somewhere. So I want to thank you, Mercedes. Thank you so much. BJ, thank you too. Let's thank our listening audience for tuning in,
Thank
taking
you.
time to hear us. Let's make sure that they subscribe and like. That helps us quite a bit. I am Sidney Wayman here with Deidre Mercedes and BJ Handel, and we'd like to tell all of you to have a very wonderful week. Maybe if you're in New York, maybe we'll see you in the Canyon of Champions tomorrow for that Nick parade. But hey, be good.